We are going to cover two of the TAP benefits today, which are dispute resolution and the hoarding consultation services. So to get us started in the chat, we would love if you would enter where you're joining us from, what your role is, and if your site is currently enrolled in TAP. So where you're joining us from, what your role is, and if your site is currently enrolled in TAP. So if you remember any of those three things, you can feel free to go put that in the chat just to introduce yourself. We are glad to have you today. So I am joined by several of my colleagues today. Our new director of housing stability, not so new anymore. She's coming up on her year. Libby Hayes is joining us today. And several others that you'll also hear from directly. So you can put a face to a name who you often email with. So joined by Denise Green, Helena Padalero is running the webinar for us. Kelly Hetrick, who you might communicate with about the TAP membership, as well as David Eng is joining us today. Our department also, we have Carol, who many of you correspond with around our training, and Linda McMahon, who manages our 3% set-aside program. So that is our team. You might have known us previously as the Community Services Department. Over the last year, we have rebranded to the Housing Stability Department. So if you're looking for us on our website, if you're looking for information about TAP, please look under Housing Stability. I did link something in the chat and we'll link it again, but look for us under Housing Stability, where we used to be Community Services. So we're excited about that change. We're not going to talk too much about it today, but just wanted to introduce some of the team who's joining us today. So thank you to everyone for planning and participating. So today's webinar is a little different than the fantastic webinars that Helena, Kelly, and Carol put on throughout the year. First off, there's no participation code, and we're not going to be issuing certificates for this. So neither of those things you have to look out for today. This webinar is really designed to be informational, and we're going to introduce you to the new partners we're working with for our hoarding consultation and our dispute resolution benefits. We hope that your sites are enrolled in TAP or planning to be, and will take advantage of these benefits as you need to throughout the year. So as such, we're not going to be covering the resident programs component of the TAP program. We're also not going to be covering the training or the hoarding flex funds today. But our purpose today is really to highlight the dispute resolution and the hoarding consultation services and the partners that we're working with. And they're going to share with you directly on what they're going to be providing throughout the year. If you have any questions about those other benefits, resident engagement programs or training, you can always email us, any of our team, or TAP resident programs at MassHousing.com. Many of you are familiar with that email. A couple of final additional housekeeping items. You will be muted today just to minimize the background noise. We're also going to be closing the chat shortly. We're going to open up the Q&A feature. That's at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So the Q&A will be available the entire time. If you have a question about the services available, then please feel free to type the question there. If you have a specific consultation question that's specific to your site, we ask that you access this service after today's webinar, but the Q&A is not going to be for that today. It'd rather that you can just learn more about how to access the benefits, what the services are, and any questions about the information that our presenters are providing. So as you see now, we'll get started. The TAP program is the Tenant Assistance Program. It is a program within the Housing Stability Department of MassHousing. If you are an affordable rental community in Massachusetts, you can enroll in TAP, and you have access to all of 4 benefits here throughout the year. And we're excited to highlight 2 of those today. With that, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, Kelly Hetrick, to talk about some updates to the TAP program.
Thank you, Kara. Nice to see you all. So a few updates to TAP that we instituted last year is TAP now operates on MassHousing's fiscal year. Sorry about that. My mouse has a life of its own. I apologize. So so that we now are aligned with MassHousing's fiscal year. So the TAP year runs from July 1 through June 30th. So we're already a month into this current TAP year. We did have to increase the TAP fee for the first time ever last year. And so it'll be the same pricing as last year. We did come up with a tiered pricing system, which is based upon if a site is financed by MassHousing or not. So again, the TAP fee is based upon the number of units at the housing site, as well as if the site is financed by MassHousing or not. So you can see the tiered pricing system right there. It's also on our website, and I believe you have a copy of the handouts, or will be, so it'll be there as well. One great piece of news is that for this year, HUD updated its endorsement. So it is now endorsing all of TAP's benefits. So if you're a HUD assisted site, you can now, your TAP membership fee is an allowable project expense. So that's great news. If you're not a HUD assisted site, this does not apply to you. So we were very excited to receive that updated endorsement. So how does one enroll in TAP? Well, we are no longer issuing paper invoices. As we instituted last year, we have an online system. Simply click on a constant contact link, which again is on our website, or you can email me for it at khetrick@masshousing.com. So you just click on the link, short registration form, and you receive a confirmation email. And I can also email you an invoice. But again, if you do have any questions about TAP membership or in how to enroll in TAP, please feel free to reach out. So thank you very much. And I am now going to pass the baton to my colleague, Denise Green. Here we go.
Denise, you are muted, so just wanted to let you.
Start again. Good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Hoarding Consultant and dispute resolution. The Hoarding Consultant is new this year, but the dispute resolution program we've always had, and we changed it over. Change a little bit about the program. And sorry, we changed the program, and now we have forms that you can use to submit for those services, and they will be going to at the TAP resident programs at MassHousing as well. That can't be handwritten or scanned. They will not be accepted that way. And the next screen are the copies of the forms, the dispute resolution form and the hoarding. They're two different forms to have to use, and they both are up on our website. And I'm going to turn it over to Dave Ng. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm turning it over to my colleague, David Ng.
Thanks, Denise. I appreciate it. Good morning, everyone. So our new hoarding consultation service, so over the years, we have heard from all of you about some of the struggles that you've had working with residents who have had hoarding behavior at your sites. And so, Helena and the training team have done a great job with pulling together trainings of different sorts related to working with folks with hoarding. And despite those great trainings, I think that sometimes you're still struggling a bit in terms of how to work with the residents. And so what we've tried to do this year is provide you with a hoarding consultant or hoarding coach who's going to be able to work with you, all of your management team, if you're an RSC, if you're the property manager, your maintenance team, to really help you think through the best approach in working with the resident and how to really pull together a plan to address the behaviors that are happening on site. And so as Denise mentioned, there is a hoarding request form that needs to be completed and submitted to Denise at the TAP resident programs at masshousing.com. Once Denise receives the form, she will go through the necessary authorizations, pass that information along to our hoarding consultant vendor, and that is the Metro Community Development Corporation, their Clear Path program. And with that, I am pleased to introduce you to Lynn Faust, who's the Executive Director of Metro Community Development Corporation. Lynn, do you want to take over?
Thank you so much, Dave. Let me get to, whoop. Let me go. Okay, I'm the Executive Director of Metro Community Development. We also have with me today Lauren Metzler, who's the Director of Clear Path Program. So we run the largest clutter mitigation program in New England, which sounds grandiose, but actually the field is really new. And there's not a lot of clutter mitigation going on anywhere in the country. We are in the state of Massachusetts, a leader in the United States, maybe the world, in working with people with hoarding and clutter. I started working with people with clutter many years ago, but officially became founded as ClearPath in 2014 with MassHousing's assistance. And basically what happened is I was working in a housing authority for decades and found out that there was great programs at MassHousing on hoarding. And I called Ed Chase and said, hey, we're interested in putting some programming together. And he helped us get established. So we're really a MassHousing founded group. We serve at this point about 600 people a year. And that's a mixture of people that attend our workshops, people that we go in homes to serve in assessments, decluttering sessions, and other things, and professional training. We are probably the most active professional trainers on hoarding. We train housing people, therapists in different organizations, veterans agencies, many different agencies throughout the state and throughout the country. So we are the experts, but the field is new. There's lots of room for more people to get into this area. And we're regularly doing capacity building and training people to be in the field, even if they're not people that want to work with us. So when we have excessive clutter in a home, what we realize having to do with rental housing is clutter is a major reason why people lose their housing. They fail their housing inspections, their homes get condemned if they're not in public housing. And the clutter may be due to hoarding behavior. It may be due to some other disorder. It may be a behavior that's not related to a disorder. But what we know is clutter is something that is evidence that there may be hoarding in the home, or someone may have hoarding in the home. The prevalence of clutter increases with age. The older people get, the more likely they are to be cluttery. Usually, if it is a disorder or hoarding disorder, the disorder is rooted in trauma, which can result from poverty, from violence, from a loss, especially loss of a loved one. And the disorder and the clutter can create a dangerous condition in the person's home, especially fire danger, trip and fall dangers. But overall, we're talking about clutter being a sign of mental health issues. And when we approach clutter, we think mental health as well as safety. So all of us on this call have various goals and responsibilities related to housing. We all want affordable, safe, stable housing. My CDC, our goal is to help people be self-sufficient, and it's within that framework that we do hoarding work. We want people to have a home, not just housing. We want to promote their physical and social well-being, and enable them to be self-determinated. Help me with that. Anyway, so we don't want to take away their rights to live the way they want to, but they need to live in a safe, sanitary way. So we need to enforce rules, but we have to do it in a way that considers their mental health. About 5 to 10% of people in public housing probably have excessive clutter. And for me, I always ask, why do they have excessive clutter before I work on enforcement? So those who clutter, they often have a lot of shame. They don't want you to see their home. They don't want you to see the clutter. It's very rare that someone would let you in the home willingly if they have clutter. They're very sensitive about their situation. They don't want to hear the H word. We don't actually use the H word, hoarder, with people who may have hoarding disorder unless they use that word themselves. So we don't use the word hoarder. We don't judge them. The word hoarder is a judgmental word. And it's important to establish a trusting relationship with the people that we work with and avoid words like hoarder. The folks that have clutter very often are very distrustful. They don't want people to come and steal from them. The stuff they have in their home, the stuff they have in their home is dear to them. I see that we have a question here. Is 5 to 10% of the general population have clutter? Someone answered the question, my thing went blank. So in public housing, there have been studies that about 5% of the general public have hoarding behavior tendencies. In public housing, I think the number of people who have clutter is at least 5 to 10%. Some people report higher than that. So the people who have clutter are distrustful. Many family members and friends, well-meaning people, have probably helped them or thought they were helping them to declutter. And the people with hoarding view that as someone stole from me. So it's many times it's family members who have stolen items from their homes thinking they were helping. What the folks who clutter need is resources to help their safety and well-being. And when I go into a home that I don't know, or I talk to fire departments about what they might do when they go into a home that's cluttery, what I tell them is that I want them to express concern for the person's health and well-being and offer resources, not judgment for the person. When you're working with someone that has a clutter, they respond generally very well to positive feedback when they do declutter or when they meet one of their goals. So when we're working with people with clutter, there are so many roadblocks. Most of our folks have a lot of anxiety. They are also very disorganized. They have executive functioning skill issues. Many have coexisting challenges, diabetes. I would say more than half of the people that we work with that have excessive cluttering are diabetic. And they may have other disorders, including eating disorders, in addition to the hoarding. They have substance use disorders, physical disabilities of different sorts, and other mental health diagnoses, some which are not treated. Often they have a family history of clutter. About 80% of the people who grow up in cluttered homes themselves are affected later in life. They may become hoarders, have hoarding disorder themselves. They may become minimalists They often will have anxiety no matter which way that they go. The people who have a family history of cluttering literally do not know how to clean their home. Yesterday, I interacted with 4 clients face-to-face, and 2 of them I gave vacuum cleaner lessons to. You might say, why would you, and these were, both of them were over the age of 60. You might say, why do you need to give vacuum cleaner lessons to someone of those ages? And a lot of times the answer is they didn't use a vacuum cleaner when they were younger, and they really don't know what sanitation and what a sanitary home looks like. So when we have a case that's a clutter case, the first thing that we do is we go through an assessment process. That's the first step in case management for a case that has clutter. Let's look at the dangers in the home. Is it hoarding? We use a short form called the Uniform Inspection Checklist, which is a form that the TPP court system now uses, that was fostered through a grant, is developed through a grant from MassHousing on the North Shore. It was developed, and it's basically an assessment of the dangers in the home. And is it hoarding? We take great pains to figure out if there's hoarding behaviors, which would mean that the person has emotional attachment to the items along with some other criteria. For the clutter, no matter what kind of clutter it is, there needs to be a plan for getting rid of the clutter and making the home safe. And when I say safe, I mean meeting the minimum standards of health, which it doesn't mean Martha Stewart clean. It means the minimum standards of health. And by the way, some of the time, an inspector might make a inspection and say, they fail inspection, there's clutter on the bed. And I got news for you. There is no health code that says they can't have clutter on the bed. So we need to make a plan that says that there's a minimum standard of health and safety in the home. And we make a plan, and then we start working on building insight and skills. So we might put them into a workshop. We may have in-home workers, depending on the dangerousness of the case and what's going on. And if they don't have a therapist, we may refer them to a therapist. We may also, if they have a therapist, ask them, have you ever mentioned that you have clutter in your home to your therapist? And it's amazing how many people have therapists and have never mentioned to the therapist that they have a clutter issue. And it's a real, that's a key thing often. Then we motivate, we do coaching, we enforce deadlines. We may have a harm reduction plan that says that the kitchen needs to be sanitary by a certain period of time. And we enforce those deadlines and give them reminders by phone call or text. We actually get a better response from our folks with reminders by text than phone calls. Phone calls can be traumatic. The text messages are things that they can look at on their own schedule. And then we do prevention. We monitor our people regularly after they have cleaned their homes. So if someone who has had hoarding in their home, we would want them to be monitored every month until 3 months in a row. They pass inspection, and then every other month for 3 months in a row until they pass inspection, and so on and so forth. And the minimum interval we want to see is every 6 months. And so we go in and go visit our people every 6 months. A big part of prevention is actually having the person get therapy for the underlying cause of the hoarding behavior. This is a trauma-based disorder, and so there's almost always an underlying cause, and it's usually a first trauma that happened before age 20. So it does help people move on if they have some therapy to deal with that trauma. So you might say, how in the world can I do all of this? And I have a question here from Carrie Sylvester. What if a tenant doesn't agree to help, how do we get them to engage? Okay, and that's a great question. And basically, in a case management style, we use a carrot and stick method. If you do this, you will pass inspection and I'll get off your back. If you don't do that and you don't pass inspection, you have the danger that you could be evicted. We don't want you to be evicted. You don't pass inspection and we're going to give you 3 months or 6 months or whatever to perform this harm reduction plan, but you have to meet your deadlines. So there's a carrot and stick process for that. And how do we do that? Who's on our team? Because I don't want anyone to think that if you have a clutter case that you have to do it alone, because none of us could do it alone. Certainly, there have been many agencies that thought that, oh, Clear Paths in the neighborhood, they work in Metro West and Neshoba Valley. We're going to throw this clutter case over our shoulder and give it to them, and we don't have to worry about it any longer. Well, no, this is a team sport. And it takes a lot of different people on the case team to really work on this. And we want to nip it in the bud before it gets to tenancy preservation court system, where we spend time also, by the way, but we don't want it to get there. So first of all, there's the housing staff, there's property managers, inspectors, maintenance people, and supportive services that have a role. And we'll talk more about that as the months and weeks go on. There's the therapist. Sometimes there's the health department in towns. And I know in housing authorities and housing folks, you say, wait a minute, I don't want the health department stepping foot in my property. But honestly, there are some cases that the health department is an ally in these cases. Senior services, whether it's senior protective services or the councils on aging in the different towns, are often very helpful on the case team. And sometimes clutter specialists, whether it's someone like ClearPath or specially trained professional organizers, or in rare cases, hazmat people. And we do not like to use hazmat people for a lot of reasons. But there are cases that we do need to bring them in. Okay, so all of us here have had residents that have failed their housing inspections. And you say, what in the world should I do? So first of all, for the housing staff, the first thing for them to do is realize that the person who just failed housing inspection has a lot of anxiety about it. They know they failed inspection, but they may not really know why. They may not know the detail of what they have to do. We often will go into a 667 housing facility and the property manager is like, yay, I'm glad you're here. And I'll ask the resident, what do you think happened in your housing inspection? And they'll say, I don't know. All they told me is I'm a mess. That is not first of all, that's judgmental. Second of all, it's not helpful. And so here's the person thinking, oh my goodness, they're coming back in a week and it's a mess. What do I do? So they're frozen because they have a trauma related disability very often, and they don't know what to do. So the first thing that you can do that's helpful is explain what about their housing inspection did not pass. And so you might say, I can't open the door all the way. The door needs to open 90 degrees. I need 36 inches pathway all the way through your home. Heaven forbid there's a 911 call and the EMS need to come. They can't get you. And so this isn't safe for you. So we want to make sure that your home is safe for you. And so we need to widen out the pathways and so on and so forth. So staff can be very helpful in explaining patiently what really didn't pass after the inspector is gone, and what work needs to be done, and it doesn't need to be done in a day. First, when we are in a case and we take a look at what needs to be done, and maybe there's a plan put in place, what staff can do is cue the folks and say, hey, you know, Friday is the day that your kitchen is supposed to have 4 square feet of food prep space, so that you can pass that kitchen inspection. How you doing on that? Is there, do you want me to take a look at it and see how you're doing, or do you need any help with that? Yeah, you know, some encouragement and some cueing. And certainly staff can do a little bit of coaching, saying, you know what, you have, I'm looking at your kitchen counter and I know you need that 4 square feet of space. I'm looking at 3 electric stand mixers in your kitchen. Do you think that, do all of them work? Is there one that is your favorite? Do you think that you might want to give one of those up and donate it to someone that you know, coach, the staff can do some coaching. What's the responsibility for the resident? Number one, to build insight. And part of that is taking responsibility. And the inspector is not the evil one. The inspector is helping them be safe, and everyone else that shares the building to be safe. And they need to build that insight. So the resident, part of their recovery is building insight into what the issue is. And they need to agree to a plan. And in some cases, it's very beneficial for the resident to be the person that helps create the plan, because that helps give them some control and will help them progress in this work. Lastly, and certainly this is the big one, is the people that have clutter need to work on it every single day. The University of California did some work in decluttering. What they found is that people who have clutter and have long histories of clutter, they need to work at decluttering 15 to 20 minutes, 7 days a week, so that they can make it a habit, so that they can keep their homes tidy. So it's very important that they have homework. So I have a question here. Can this process be triggered by a neighbor or family member? And so I'm not sure whether the process of hoarding is triggered by a family member. Hoarding can be hereditary. People can learn hoarding. It can also be that the family had a turbulent poverty. It had a lot of trauma in it, the family that they grew up in. So yes, it can be triggered. It can be fostered in a family setting. Yes. Okay. So I hope I answered that question. Okay. Sorry about the registration issue. So what can you do? So we're offering case consultations for the TAP members, and we're so excited to get into this. First of all, it's going to be very helpful for TAP members to talk through the cases that you have. You might say, you know, what can I do? So we can talk through the strategy that you might use in the case. You might, we might practice what kind of trust building language you can use when you talk to the resident. What are some reasonable goals? What are steps and realistic schedules? Consider different approaches. What are the other services available? And are there therapeutic resources in your area that you can call on to help this resident? So there may be people in your area that can help. Many of the ASAPs, for instance, have services available for elderly people. The case consultation process is, number one, to complete and submit a referral form to MassHousing. There's a form that you saw earlier in this presentation that you would fill out. MassHousing gets the form, approves it, assigns it a case number, and sends it over to us. We are going to respond to you very promptly, usually within 24 hours and almost always in the morning. The reason in the morning is that everybody at ClearPath is usually in homes in the afternoon. Our people do not get up early in the morning. They are night owls by and large, and we rarely can go into a home before noon. And so we're going to probably answer you in the morning. We'll have 1 or 2 conversations, maybe another one, about each case, and we're going to get really in depth, as in depth as you want to be, and probably up to about 90 minutes. So that's the basis of one-on-one case consultations. We're also going to do some case consultations as a group because we're going to be learning together. Now, I think back to when ClearPath was young and how the ClearPath staff and interns learned together, and actually we still learn together by working together 1 hour every week, our staff does, to learn from one another and talk about cases. What we're going to do for TAP members is everyone's going to learn at least once monthly from 9 to 10 o'clock in a Zoom. The first Thursday of the month are going to be resident service coordinators. The second, property management. Third Thursdays, maintenance staff. And the following Wednesday will be sort of a makeup session for anybody that wants to come, which will be also at 9 to 10. And what we're going to do during these sessions is for the first 10 to 15 minutes, we're going to teach or give a course, a mini course on something related to hoarding and cluttering. So over the course of the year, you're going to learn an enormous amount of work, of topics on hoarding. And if you have other questions, you want us to address specific things, you can come to us in the meeting and say, next time I'd really like to know, or sometime I'd like to know more about XYZ, and we will do that. So the topics are going to change monthly. And then during the meetings, you will be able to bring case discussions anonymously to the meeting, and we could talk through them. This is important for all of us to kind of process some typical cases together to learn what to do and what the strategies might be. Okay. So I have a question about whether we work with particular therapists. Oh my goodness, any therapist that deals in trauma is a good therapist to work with. We have certain favorite ones that we work with through the areas, but there are many therapists that can be good at this. And if you have a therapist that you want to get some training on hoarding, send them to us. We train therapists constantly as part of what we do. So, are there any questions? Crickets.
I did get a question in the chat that I'm not sure everyone would have seen. The question is, I am told by my residents that culturally, this is how they live. That's in quotation marks. How would you approach that?
Great question. So yeah, I had a woman yesterday that I visited, and she says, I'm from the South. In the South, we save everything related to family, and that's what I do. And my answer to that was, our job, since you share a wall with many other people, is to keep you safe. And we want to find a way that you can keep the things that are important to you, but also keep yourself safe and everyone in the building safe. So yeah, we want people to be able to be self-determined and to live the way they want, but it is not acceptable to endanger yourself or anybody else, including the emergency services people that need to answer your call when you dial 911.
Then there's a question someone typed in asking about help with bed bug treatment prep. I think I know the answer to that, but I'm going to let you take it.
Bed bug treatment. So here's the deal on bed bugs. And, you know, I've worked in housing for a long time, and the housing authority that I worked with as a board member had bed bugs occasionally. And in the old days, we learned that heat treatments and dogs were the best way that disturbed the residents the least amount. Okay. And what we find is that because the heat treatments are so expensive, that people do the standard prep and do a lot of chemicals. Well, what we're finding is people with clutter issues do what they've always done their whole life. They've put their stuff in black bags. They stuff it in their cars, in their vans, in their storage bins for a while. And when the threat of getting an inspection or prep for bed bugs goes away, they bring it all back in with the bed bugs in the bags and reinfest. So it is a terrible dilemma about bed bugs. I know that some of the guidance from the state about bed bugs treatments has gone away from heat and towards chemicals again, probably because of cost. But it is a huge yo-yo dilemma. And the prep for people with hoarding is very, very difficult. And I think in some cases, heat treatments are the only reasonable accommodation for people with hoarding. That's my opinion, and not as official statement about prep in bed bugs.
Thanks, Lynn. There's a question in the chat. Someone asked if you could please repeat the monitoring timetable that you talked about before.
Yes, and so what we found, let me talk a little bit about the background, is what we found is once someone cleans up, which sometimes is a traumatic process, they often reclutter really quickly. Like within a month, they will reclutter the home to a severe state. And if it's totally recluttered to the point that it was initially, they will lose hope that they will ever be able to declutter again, because it was so difficult for them to declutter the first time. So for us in our clear path towns, we have towns that subscribe to our services. We will declutter, after a decluttering, we will go back every month until 3 months in a row, they pass a uniform inspection checklist. Then we will go back every 2 months until 3 inspections in a row, they pass uniform inspection checklist. Then we will go to every quarter till every quarter passes, then every 6 months forever. And the reason is, if it goes more than 6 months in a really cluttered state, our experience is they will not be able to declutter again.
Thanks, Lynn.
Okay.
I'm not seeing other questions. Helena, do you have any other direct
I
questions
just
to you?
have one more comment in the chat, which is the monthly training sessions are great, all in capital letters and a ton of exclamation points, and then a thank you.
Oh, we are so excited to do this. We are at heart capacity builders. We're a community development corporation, and we just want everybody to know what the proper way to deal with this so people can become well and to have more stable housing. So we are excited to talk to you. I want all your questions. Lauren and I will both be doing trainings. I'll probably do the lead. We may also, in some of our trainings, have a peer who has hoarding disorder come along. So you might, we have found that peer-based work has been very helpful. What the studies of people with hoarding disorder show from a medical standpoint is they think differently than you and I do. I do not have hoarding disorder, neither does Lauren. They just think differently, and it really helps us to understand and to empathize a little bit, to have someone who has hoarding disorder present, who's neutral, not your client in the training. So Thank you so much for your attention. We look forward to working with you.
I do have one more logistical question for you, Lynn, that came in to me through a direct message, which is how do people sign up? This actually, I got a couple of these. How do people sign up for those monthly or weekly trainings? Was it those
Well,
trainings?
we're going to have, once we get it going, we're going to have the MassHousing people will give you the link if you're a TAP member. And we will use that link on a consistent basis to do the training. So if you're a TAP member, you get the link, and that is that's just the way it goes.
Thanks, Lynn. There's one last question, it looks like, in the Q&A. Someone asks, who pays for the in-home services? I know that's maybe a complicated answer, but if you could maybe take a stab at it.
Yeah, and it depends on where you are and what happens. When we got started, we were funded only through grants, some of them through MassHousing for direct services. That's no longer the case. ASAP for senior housing, a lot of senior housing people fund us. Sometimes we're funded through DDS, DCF, many state agencies for people that are wealthy. And I know that's not this group. For people that are wealthy, they private pay for us. So many different agencies pay for us. It's a matter of asking. I long for the day when DMH will pay for our services, because this is mental health that we're talking about. But that's not in place at the current time.
Thanks, Lynn. I'll also add that while we aren't covering it during this session, we do also have hoarding flex funds that we're making available to our TAP members. It's up to $3,000 per household. Those funds are accessed through your local tenancy preservation program. So if you have questions about that, please reach out to me afterwards, and I'm happy to walk you through those steps. We have another, maybe last question that just popped up in the Q&A. I'm meeting with a resident today about a failed inspection due to clutter. What's a great place to start?
Great place. Well, have you been there before? Let's see. Actually, I know. Can you put that person on and they unmute, and can I model this? A case discussion?
I'm
we have a
unmuted.
little bit of time. Hello, Alyssa. I'm Lynn. So tell me what's going on.
So I have a resident who is a collector. So he has he collects used Tupperware containers, so like sour cream, and they're all over his tables. He has some boxes and stuff that are blocking egress. And so every room is full of his collection. And so we weren't able to, when we inspected, we weren't able to get into certain rooms just because there was like clutter.
Okay, I have a suggestion for everybody, and I don't have mine right here. I carry a physical yardstick in my kit, okay? And it's 36 inches, right? Which is the size that pathways need to be, okay? So the first thing that I would do is say, I want to talk to you about some things that don't pass inspection here. And I think that we want to concentrate on your safety. So first of all, let's see what happens when I open your door, and you open the door and you say, this door doesn't open 90 degrees. So what if you called 911 and you have to get out of, somebody has to come in with a litter and take you out. This needs to open 90 degrees. And, I'm also concerned about the safety in your kitchen. It seems as though there's so much stuff, and let's look at the things that don't pass a safety inspection. Oh, is there clutter on your stove? Oh, can you open your refrigerator? Is that overfilled? Do you have expired food? So my suggestion would be that you stick to the health code. Okay. You don't talk about specific things, but you stick to the health code. There's a uniform inspection checklist that you can get off of MassHousing's website on hoarding. There's a hoarding tab. And there's a one-page uniform inspection checklist, which is what TPP uses in many of the stipulations that we deal with. And go through it. I can train you on it on a one-on-one consultation. Fill out the form for MassHousing. I can chat with you about that later today or tomorrow if you fill out the form. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. That was fantastic. I think we've run out of time for this segment. So I'm going to pass it over to Kara.
Thanks, Dave. And thank you, Lynn and Lauren. That was excellent. We are excited to get started with you. Excited for all on the call to access these benefits, both the one-to-one and the group sessions. So we're really looking forward to working with you. And again, thank you, Dave, for your leadership in putting this together, making sure that this is a benefit available through TAP. So we are going to transition now, and we are going to talk about dispute resolution. As you heard from Denise earlier, we have had dispute resolution as a benefit in TAP for a number of years. But this is our first year working with the Massachusetts Office of Public Collaboration. That's a lot of words, so I'm going to call them MOPC from here on out, but we are very excited to be working with them. And their capacity, they have been doing a lot of the eviction diversion initiative work over the last several years. They're very skilled in working in housing. So we're very, very excited to have them as a partner. As you saw earlier when Denise presented, there is a form now for dispute resolution. So where you used to just call, we have a form now. It looks very similar to the one you're familiar with from resident programs. So that form, I've dropped it in the chat a couple of times. It's on the right-hand side of the screen. If you're looking at that page I sent, and it says there's several forms listed there. So you can find dispute resolution, hoarding, and our resident program form there. What will happen is once you complete that form, we will send it to the local mediation center for the appropriate services. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ross and Jarling to talk about what that means and the great services that they're going to provide through their community mediation centers. So thank you both for being with us.
Thanks, Cara, for that introduction. We're very happy to be here. My name is Ros Cresswell. I am the Director of Community Mediation Programs at MOPC. I'll stick to that title because you're right, it's a very long name. Today I'm going to talk a little bit just to give some background about who we are, since we are a new partner in the TAP process, and a little bit about mediation and some background to that, just to give you some context. And then my colleague Jarling will follow and talk a little bit about the actual program itself. So let me move this forward. All right. So the first question that I wanted to deal with is who is MOPC? Some people may be unfamiliar with this. So we were formerly known as the Mass Office of Dispute Resolution, now the Mass Office of Public Collaboration, and we're the statutory state dispute resolution agency and a applied research center based at UMass Boston. We provide services to the 3 branches of government, and as we have contracted with the TAP program and MassHousing, we have an expedited procurement process that allows us to contract directly with other state agencies. We serve generally as a neutral forum for conflict resolution, help with public decision making and consensus building where there's contentious public issues, and we build capacity within public housing agencies. And then we build and administer evidence-based public mediation programs. Examples of those are the Housing Mediation Program and a program we run for re-entering citizens who have been incarcerated, either pre-release or post-release. And we also fund state-sponsored community mediation. And I want to tell you a little bit about that next. So state-sponsored community mediation is a state-sponsored program under general law since 2013. We administer a performance-based grant program, which community mediation centers apply for on a biannual basis. And as a result of that process, we provide operational funding to 12 community mediation centers who are all independent, long-established, non-profit organizations who serve their local communities in all 14 counties of the state and serving the 72 court divisions. Members may already know some of the centers, but we want to make it clear that they're part of a wider program that spans the whole state and can be reached through a centralized website, which we'll tell you a little bit more about later. So what is so special about community mediation? What distinguishes us from other types of dispute resolution providers? So first of all, in order to be funded by our office, all the centers are qualified under a set of model standards, which we refer to as the 12-point model. It was developed in partnership between our office and the centers, and it's focused on 4 main areas on service, access, quality, and diversity. And each grant process, the centers demonstrate their continued compliance with that model. All our centers are local. As I said, they're all over the state. We have one in the furthest west in Pittsfield and one in the furthest east in Martha's Vineyard. So we do spread the whole across the whole state, and all of the centers are embedded in their local communities and are partners with many different local community organizations. All the services that they provide are free or low cost, often a sliding scale fee. But for the housing mediation program, all the services that we provide are sponsored by the state and are provided for free. All our mediators are well trained. What does that mean? It means that they've been trained to standards approved by the trial court, which is also an approver of our programs, to learn what we call basic mediation skills, but they're not that basic. They're complex, and it involves a 30 to 40-hour training program. And then on top of that, they're trained specifically in dealing with housing cases. That's an additional training on top of their basic one. And we provide facilitative mediation. What that means is that they're there to help a conversation take place. They're not there to judge or to make decisions, but they're just there to help smooth the process over and help people take control and have conversations about what's important to them. So I want to talk very generally also about what mediation is. It's a term that many people are familiar with, even though it's a standard joke that people misread signs and think that they're coming to meditation, but it is in fact mediation. People, as I say, think that they often know what it is, but I just want to go in a little bit of detail very specifically about the ethical standards that mediators have to follow. So first of all, it's a voluntary process. That means that everybody who's part of the mediation is there willingly, and at any point during the process, they can say, this is no longer for me, and I wish to be no part of it any longer. It's a confidential process, which is backed also by state law, which means that anything that is discussed in mediation remains in the mediation, with a few exceptions about safety and risk and things like that. As I've already mentioned, the mediator is a neutral third party. They don't take sides. People often come to mediation with the misunderstanding that we're going to say you're right and the other person's wrong and kind of back them, but that's definitely not our role. We're there to be that neutral person, to just help the conversation along. And we prioritize people's self-determination in that. So the outcome of the mediation is what the parties are looking for. It's not what we tell them it should be, because people know best of all what the best solution to their particular problems are. And then the fifth ethical principle is informed consent, which means that the parties know and understand what the mediation process is, and can get access to information about their rights and obligations so that they can make an informed decision about where the mediation's headed. And ultimately, we hope to reach a mutually agreeable outcome, but that isn't always necessarily the case. And a progress towards one, improved communications, learning more about the other person's positions is also ways in which we can benefit the process going forward. These ethical principles are all key in the practice of mediation, but we're sharing them with you just so that you know also that we can't force anybody to come to mediation, and that all the mediations that we will undertake have to be done in a confidential space, and we need to be able to have space to be able to go through that process with people. So as well as telling you what mediation is, we wanted to tell you a little bit about what it isn't. And that ties back in fairly strongly to those ethical principles again. So it's not adjudicatory. It's not like going to court or an arbitrator. The mediator isn't going to take sides or make recommendations about how things should be settled or to direct the parties towards a particular solution. This is a common misunderstanding. People think that they're going to be brought into a room and somehow dragged into a middle position. And both have to give up something. And very commonly in mediation, we find that that is not the case once people understand what's important to them and what feelings are driving the situation that they find themselves into, and they understand each other better, then they're in a position to look at what might help resolve a situation. In some cases, that may involve one person getting exactly what they're looking for, and another one saying, you know what, I'm happy with that. So it's definitely not about a reluctant compromise. It's not limited by the framing of a specific legal action. So when matters are in court, they're defined very strictly by the particular function of that court or the particular way a motion has been filed. Mediation allows parties to bring up anything that's important to them in a particular situation, and to think flexibility, to build flexibility into what the outcomes might be. It's not time limited, which means that if people need to take a break or they need to go away and get additional support or advice or information, then we can reconvene and come back and continue the mediation. It's not a way to solve a purely legal rights-based dispute. It's much more about finding out what's important to people and helping them find a way of solving those issues collaboratively together. It's also, as I've said, not about giving up rights. People do not give up any rights as a result of having been through mediation, but they can avoid lengthy and expensive legal processes by having a conversation which gets them to a position where they're both happy with an outcome. And it's also not the same as the dispute intervention service that's available in the housing court, which is provided by housing court specialists. They operate under slightly different trial court rules than mediation. And as I've said, we have those 5 ethical principles that I described before, which bind mediators to their process. So I think that is me. We're going to move now on to what the dispute resolution services themselves actually look like. And Jarling's going to introduce herself and tell you a bit more about those.
Thank you, Roz. Good morning. My name is Jarling Ho. I'm the program manager for the Housing Mediation Program at MOPC. So what I'll talk with you about is a little bit more about the TAP benefits dispute resolution services, and then how you go about starting that process. And then near the end, we'll go ahead and also introduce all the coordinators at our centers, so you can put a face to a name as well. So just kind of orient ourselves. Roz mentioned who we are and some of our programs. Part of the dispute resolution services that we're providing are part of our housing mediation program that we've been running for several years, that started during the pandemic. And the housing mediation program is part of our state-sponsored community mediation. So that's kind of like a broad overview of the dispute resolution services, where it fits in our programming. So our housing mediation program is a statewide program to promote housing stability, and it is done in partnership with housing agencies and also the district courts. So we get referrals from RAAs and HCECs. We get referrals from housing authorities, apartments, property management groups, et cetera, individuals. And we also work in the district courts, not the housing courts. And as the judges or the clerks determine that mediation might be a possible process for folks going through the summary process, well, the eviction process, they can refer folks to mediation to try and work things out. Because a lot of times it's just better for individuals to be able to work through all things and not just the specific legal issues that are coming through the court. So we do have eligibility for that. It's any property in Massachusetts. It's any sort of housing dispute that could lead to eventual loss of housing or eviction. So we really believe in proactive work. So the further ahead we can get with resolving and supporting individuals to resolve their disputes, the better it is in terms of outcomes and in terms of sticking with mutually agreed decisions about the dispute. That typically just works better. And then there's no income limits as well. So in terms of the dispute resolution services through TAP, you have to be TAP enrolled, and then that gives you access to our housing mediation program. So what we are providing for TAP enrolled sites are 3 different services. Most of it will be mediation. And so Roz explained the process of mediation. There's also facilitation, in which an impartial facilitator helps a group of individuals have a productive conversation about a specific topic or an issue. And then we also are offering conflict resolution workshops. These are going to be 2-hour workshops that address something that's specific to your site that may be generating conflict. And it's really to support peaceful communities. So in terms of the benefits that we've found, it really gives folks a sense of control about their situation. And when they spend time in mediation to talk about the situation, a lot of times they can generate these ideas that they will stick with versus being told what to do. So in terms of our principles, self-determination is very important. And we support self-empowerment as well. It gives people a chance to be heard and to speak. A lot of times they don't feel like they're heard, and when they have that opportunity to do so, they get clearer, they know what they want, and they a lot of times can also understand the other folks in the room, and then get to the stage of figuring out how to problem solve and work towards resolving the issues that are in front of them. It allows for creative, flexible outcomes beyond any sort of legal action. So if there is a noise issue where someone is upstairs and someone is downstairs, and perhaps there may be a TV with a shared wall, talking through folks' interests and what their schedules may be can help them figure out a solution that works for everyone. It could be figuring out time. It could be figuring out how to change, the setup. It really is up to the parties in terms of what they can come up with and what they're able to work through. It can be used at any stage. Again, we are believers of being proactive about this. And so the earlier, the better. And it also helps retain or build relationships. A lot of times when folks can sit down and talk through this and be able to speak, it starts building trust between folks. And it also, when people decide that they want to sit down to mediation, it also demonstrates that they're willing to work things out. So in terms of what can be mediated, a lot of things can. Our mediators are skilled in supporting, being able to help folks listen to each other and really work through the interests and the issues. So any sort of intense conflict, it could feel intractable. It could be multiple or complex issues. So it could be about noise, but it could have been about an interaction that the tenants had with each other from a year ago, things like that. And so they're all very layered. It could be about miscommunication, misperception, or lack of communication. Again, when you hear, one tenant talk about a particular situation and how they, interpreted or perceived it, and then you talk with the other tenant, they have they heard something different from the individual. Those types of conflicts, can be mediated. And it could be also like a history of conflicts as well between the parties or the tenants. So in terms of facilitation, it just means that it's with a larger group. So when you work with the coordinator and you talk through the situation, they can help you distinguish, whether it's better for a mediation or a facilitation. And in terms of the conflict resolution workshops, they're for issues that are broadly affecting your site. It's not specific to individuals. And it's to support folks building their dispute resolution skills, communication skills, listening skills, so that they are able to, have a more connected community, a more peaceful community. So how do you get started? So what you will do is you will submit that form that you saw earlier, and submit it to the TAP residence programs. And then they'll go through what they need to, and then connect you with the local mediation center. We serve certain geographical areas. And so depending on where your site is, you'll be assigned to a particular mediation center. The coordinator then will reach out to you and speak with you a little bit more about the dispute. This is specifically for, well, actually, it's for any of the 3 services. And they'll talk with you about mediation services and facilitation, and also can provide recommendations in terms of which approach to go. And then also plan out the next steps. That's when you'll go ahead and provide the contact information for the tenants, for example, if it's a mediation. And the coordinator will then reach out to the parties to talk about mediation. So it's not your job to talk about mediation or facilitation. It's your job to say, I'm going to send you over to mediation, and they'll talk with you about it. They'll help you work through what you want to do, and then decide whether you want to proceed with mediation or not. So you don't have to try to sell it to them or anything like that. It's really for the coordinators to share that. And I'm sorry, there's a lot of background noise. My apologies about that. And then they'll also go through and screen for appropriateness, and make sure that people are informed that they're ready to meet. And then if they all just agree to mediate, then the coordinators will then schedule the mediation. It can be held online, or it can also be by phone or in person, depending on individuals' preferences. So it really is on the tenants to decide whether they want to have a mediation in person, via Zoom, or by phone. And so if it's in person, what we do ask is that the space that they have is confidential. That's not like a part of a room where folks can hear the conversation, but it really is a space where they can talk through and know that people can't hear. And then the coordinator can follow up as needed. So those are the steps in terms of the process of accessing the services, and then what the coordinators will do with afterwards. Okay, so here are a couple talking points for you to introduce the services. Again, it's not about you explaining it. That's what the coordinators are for. So you can mention to them that you're referring them to a mediation center so they can learn more about the services. And it's a way for folks to work things out themselves. We believe in capacity building as well, and in empowerment and self-determination of individuals going through this. And we really want to support their decision-making in terms of the disputes that are before them. For workshops, you can say something like, we're setting up a skills workshop meeting where you can come talk about a particular situation. So all of this can also be, you can talk through this with the coordinator as well and figure out a game plan from there. Let's see. So where are our centers? You can find us on our Resolution MA website. We'll have the link in our last slide. But here's like a brief map. Starting from the west, there's Berkshire County Regional Housing Authority in Pittsfield. Actually, this is in alphabetical order, not geographic. So then CDSC is in the Cambridge area, Community Dispute Settlement Center. CRG is in Greenfield, FSCM is in the Worcester area, Greater Brockton Center for Dispute Resolution is in the Brockton area. MCC is Middlesex Community College in the Lowell area. MMS is in the Brookline area. MSI is in kind of the more central area near Leominster. Martha's Vineyard is in Vineyard Haven. Metro West is in the Framingham area, and then TRC, the Resolution Center, is in Essex County and Beverly. So I'm going to have our coordinators introduce themselves so that you can put a face to a name. And we'll start on the western side. So I'll call in the center. Please say your name, which center you're with, and your general kind of geographic area. That would be great. So folks did send me their photos. So this is not everyone's photos on there, but that's a slightly different kind of view of the different centers. So Berkshire County Regional Housing Authority. I don't know if I think Lynn is here.
Hi, my name is Lynn Wallace. I am the housing case coordinator for mediation in Pittsfield and the Berkshires, which is the part of Massachusetts that actually exists west of Springfield.
Thanks, Lynn.
You're welcome.
Collaborative resolutions groups. There are two folks who wanted to introduce themselves.
I can go ahead and start. My name is Kenzie. I'm going to be the housing case coordinator. I work at CRG, or Collaborative Resolutions Group, and we serve Franklin, Hampton, and Hampshire counties in Western Mass.
And then Allison Bonby, I think you also wanted to introduce yourself. I'm not sure. Just want to check with that.
Well, I wasn't sure if I should, but I can now. I'm here. I'm Allison Bombi. I'm the Finance and Grants Manager at Collaborative Resolutions Group. And Kenzie is our case coordinator for housing.
Thank you. MSI.
Hi, I'm Tina Juby. I'm with Mediation Services in the North Central Massachusetts towns.
Thanks. Next is FSCM. Sorry, Helena, I know it's a lot of folks to spotlight. Do you want to just spotlight all the coordinators? Not sure if that would make it easier. But Wairimu, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Wairimu Macharia, and I am the Housing Mediation Coordinator for Family Services of Central Mass. We are in Worcester, but we also serve towns surrounding the Worcester area, Webster. We actually do, we work with MSI as far as trying to see which towns they cover in the Central Mass area and which ones we cover. So Worcester and all surrounding towns, but towards Leominster, that's where Tina Juby and MSI comes in. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Lee at Metro West.
Good morning,
Morrison.
everyone. My name is Lee Morrison. I'm the Housing Mediation Program Coordinator at Metro West Mediation Services. We serve the Metro West Boston area. That's pretty much it. Thanks. Looking forward to work with you guys.
Thank you, Lee. Ursula at MCC Law Center.
Good morning, everyone. Excuse me. My name is Ursula Puri-Perry, and I am the Executive Director of the MCC Law Center. And we have no HMP coordinator at the moment. We're in the process of hiring a housing mediation coordinator. I will certainly introduce them to you once we have the hire made. We serve the greater Lowell area and Middlesex County, and we look forward to working with you.
Thanks, Ursula. And so the referrals will go to Ursula and she manages that currently. So next is Allison at MMS.
So hi, everyone. My name is Allison Christian, and I am the Court and Housing Mediation Coordinator for Metropolitan Mediation Services, or MMS. And we serve towns in the counties of Suffolk, Middlesex, and Norfolk.
Thank you. We'll go next to Nancy at Greater Brockton. Nancy, are you, I think I saw you. Are you on here? Okay, I'm not seeing Nancy. Oh, there you are.
More, I was having trouble on here. Sorry about that.
We're having trouble hearing you, Nancy. Okay, well,
my name is Nancy at the Greater Brockton. Did you hear that, Charlie?
Just bits of it. Okay.
Did you get that?
We heard it again, parts. So just mention
Okay. Okay. My name is Sarah, and I'm a case coordinator.
Okay, let's do this.
We service Plymouth County.
Thank you, Nancy. All right, let's go through the rest really quickly. Next is Yes at CDSC.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Yes. I work with the Community Dispute Settlement Center, formerly known as Cambridge Dispute Settlement Center. We serve Middlesex County, Suffolk County, and I know that there's some overlap, so just to make it clear, we serve Cambridge, we serve Nahant, Chelsea, those are some of the towns, and then for Suffolk, it will be Boston, as well as Greater Boston, all the towns in Boston, Dorchester, Roxbury, to make it plain. And yeah, that's me.
Thank you. Yes. And I think that answers the question that was out there. The center, well, so CDSC is in Cambridge, but serves the Boston area. The other dot on this map is actually MOPC, since we are in Boston. And then we can definitely share contact information. With the TAP services, what you want to do, though, is to reach out to use the referral form and send it over to TAP or MassHousing. And then you can also speak with the coordinators. If it's outside of the housing program and it's something different, then you can reach out to the coordinators or the center, actually. And next is Adriana, TRC.
Good morning. My name is Adriana, and I am at the Resolution Center, formerly known as North Shore Community Mediation Center. I am the housing case manager, and we service all of Essex County.
Thank you, Adriana. And then last but not least is Paula, Reedboard.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paula Reedboard, and we are located on Martha's Vineyard. We cover Dukes County. I am actually the housing mediation program coordinator. We cover Dukes County and Bristol County for any housing dispute. So please give us a call if you need our help. Glad to be here.
Thank you, Paula. So do we have any questions? I think there were a couple that that Roz answered, and then I was answering. Any other questions about our services or about mediation or dispute resolution?
I think this was answered, but I had a direct message. Will contact information be provided for the mediators? And I think the process is that people need to fill out that form, and then they will be able to access the mediators through that.
Yes, and then you'll be speaking with the coordinators, and then depending on the if it's a mediation service you're looking for, then they'll assign mediators for that particular case. Not always the same in terms of who is. You're always going to speak with the coordinator. The mediators may not be the same.
So while we're waiting to see if there's any more questions, I just wanted to emphasize a few things. One is that those forms are up and available on MassHousing's website. And again, that is how you're going to access both the hoarding and the dispute resolution benefit is through those forms. So those are going to be submitted to TAP resident programs at masshousing.com, and then you will be connected to the provider through that. So again, that's the process. I also wanted to mention I did drop the slides into the chat for your access of all this information. So all the slides today are in that presentation. And if there's another question here that says, can sites who are not TAP members still pay for this service?
So what we described was the dispute resolution services for TAP enrolled members. Community mediation centers also provide a number of other types of services for community members. So depending on the type of dispute, I would say it would be through TAP. If it's something outside of housing, that it could be. So if it's something outside of housing, what I would suggest is then you could reach out to the community mediation centers about that. Roz, did you have anything to add about that?
I think just that we offer a housing mediation program statewide, as Jarling showed in our diagrams, that the TAP program is part of a bigger housing mediation program. And if you're not a TAP qualified site, then if it's a housing mediation program case, you could get services directly from our centers also for free. But any other case, if it related to families or divorce or just a community issue or anything like that, it would be handled under whatever the local community mediation centers policies were for payment for those particular cases. Yeah.
Elena, did you have any more questions come into you?
I do not.
Great. Well, I don't see any in the Q&A, and I don't have any myself. So with that, I just wanted to say thank you, Jarling and Ross, for your presentation. I see actually one more question came in. Is everything done in person?
No, we can do mediations over the phone as well as through Zoom. It really depends on the folks who are involved in the dispute, how they want to have the mediation.
And this wasn't asked, but it has been asked often to me. So can you also just talk about language capacity?
Oh, yes. So we have interpreters. And so if you have individuals, so that's a broad answer to your question, but it's nuanced. We have some folks who speak Spanish and Portuguese on staff at the centers, and Mandarin as well, and I think a few other languages that I'm missing. So check with the centers about their language capacity, but we also are able to use a telephone interpreter service as a way to support the mediations as well. So we have ways to support individuals depending on their language skills and what they're most comfortable speaking in.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions. I was just waiting for if any more were going to trickle in, and which is perfect because we are right at time. So thank you, Ross and Jarling. Also, thank you to Lynn and Lauren for both of your presentations. Thank you all of all the participants who are joining us today. We hope that you'll be able to take advantage of these services as you need throughout the year. As always, our team is available. Denise, Kelly, Helena, Carol, David, Linda, Libby, and myself, we are all available and able to answer any questions about TAP in general, but the specific benefits as well. So we want to thank you for joining. And if you have any questions about TAP enrollment, because of course that is the first step, I do encourage you to contact Kelly Hetrick, khetrick@masshousing.com. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you all soon and as we get started with trainings this fall. Thanks, everyone.